in terms of coaching topic, what I want to talk to you about first is what I call architecting the prospect experience. And this is something that can make a really, really big difference in the success of your sales efforts, your closing percentage. It can also make a huge difference in how long you retain your clients once they have signed on. And it can make a really, really big difference just in terms of the overall branding of your company. And this is something that at Everon in particular, our IT services company, we paid a lot of attention to. And I think that really benefited us as a company because we really differentiated ourselves from our competition by thinking through this whole prospect experience. And one of the most eye-opening lessons for me in understanding how important this was when one of my clients told me why she was so happy working with our company versus most IT service providers. And I was, of course, when she told me, that was what she was about to tell me, I was all ears. I was very interested in hearing, what it was. And she said, do you know what most IT service providers look like when they come in here and work in our office? And I said, well, I mean, I know that they typically dress horribly, they look kind of sloppy, all that type of stuff. And she said, yeah. And she said that all that is absolutely true. And, our guys at Everon, we would wear like sports coats and things like that. We would try and fit into their business environment. And so she said, yes, and you guys absolutely, do a great job of differentiating yourself there. She said, but let me show you what I mean. And she leaned back in her chair. She put her feet up on her desk. She started playing with her mobile phone. And then every once in a while, she would reach over and she would tap the space bar on her computer. And I immediately knew what she was talking about. If you've ever worked as an IT service professional, there's lots and lots of downtime where you're waiting for software to install, and especially on Microsoft, computers, right? The software is taking forever to install, and it's going through and it's just kind of chugging along. And like every, 5 minutes, it'll prompt you with a message that says, such and such is now happening. Press the space bar to continue. And that can be like an hour and a half or 2 hours of work doing that. And she was saying, how frustrating it is to see that you're paying somebody $135 an hour to sit in your office with their feet up on your desk and hit the space bar every once in a while they play on their mobile phone. And I was like, yeah, I totally get that. And, but that was a perfect illustration because that was normal in our industry. That was how IT service providers in our industry worked. And they just assumed that was the way they could work because, hey, it's not their fault. Microsoft software takes so long to install. They can, they have to sit there and do that, right? But what we did differently at our company was anytime we were doing work like that, we made sure that we were doing it remotely over the internet, or we brought their computers back to our lab at our office and did all of that type of work in our office. So by doing that, one, they weren't seeing an IT service provider sitting there with their feet up on their desk. And two, we could work on 20 computers at a time, right? We would have one engineer working on 20 computers at a time instead of one computer. And so that gave us massive scalability and massive profitability compared to other service providers. So because we loved the profitability side of things primarily, but when I realized, oh man, not only is it more profitable, but it's a dramatically better experience for my customers. I realized, man, we need to think through all of these key experiences all the way through the prospecting and buying cycle so that we can make sure that we architect an experience that totally differentiates ourselves from the competition. And that's what this presentation is. So I want to take you through some of what I think are the key concepts in architecting the prospect experience so that you can think through some of these ideas as you are, designing your business. And that's really what you should do is design your business. It should be a thoughtful design as much as possible from the first experience that you have with the prospect to the last experience that you have with your client so that everything makes the right impression on those prospects and clients to be to your advantage, right? And when I hear some of you tell me, oh, I had a client for 3 months and then they just dumped me and I didn't see it coming, that type of thing. Nehal, you're on the call here. You expressed, some of this frustration recently with this happening to you. And to me, I believe that is primarily because you are not architecting the experience. I believe that if you were architecting the experience properly, that it would be very rare that you would sign up a client and have them leave you that fast because they would know exactly what they were getting into. So they wouldn't be surprised 2.5 months into it and decide, oh, we're going to make a change. Now, of course, there are other scenarios. I'm not trying to say that that's the only scenario. But I do think that in most of the times when I see this happening in our industry, I do think that in most of the cases, that is why it's happening. And I think, Josh Nelson, local income lab member down in Miami who runs the plumbing SEO business, he's got incredibly high retention rates. And the reason he has incredibly high retention rates, I believe, is because he has done an excellent job of architecting the experience all the way through so that his prospects know exactly what they're buying into. They have the right expectations about how long the results should take. And he's created an experience that makes them feel satisfied throughout the entire service delivery process. Okay. Now, this is not the easiest thing in the world to do, but it's also not that hard. And you don't have to get it perfect, okay? All you have to do is be better than your competition. And I'm telling you right now that it is easy to be better than your competition in this industry right now. It really is. If you are, at all thoughtful about this stuff, you will differentiate yourself from, okay? So what does architecting the prospect experience mean? It means everything makes an impression, okay? Everything makes an impression. What do they see? What do they hear? Where are they at? How much authority do they think you have? Okay, these are all things that make an impression during the sales process and during the client services delivery process. And that impression matters. We all know this, right? We all understand that impressions matter. Okay. When we meet new people in our personal lives, impressions matter. When we meet new people in our business lives, impressions matter. Okay. Impressions matter to your clients and to your prospects, and they make decisions based on those impressions. So you should be thoughtful about what is it that they are seeing, hearing, and experiencing during the process of being sold to by you, or having services. Okay. So that's what it means to architect the experience. You want to design a favorable process, and you want to ask yourself, what puts the prospect in the best position to buy from you? Okay, what puts the prospect in the best position to buy from you? And then you want to remove as many variables as possible. Okay, ideally, and this is something that honestly I have not been nearly as good about in my career as I would like to have been, but really, really good sales architects will do everything that they can to remove as many variables by controlling the entire environment in which they are selling. Okay, if you read some of Dan Kennedy's real advanced strategies on selling, this is the type of stuff that he really gets into. Okay, this is one of the reasons why Dan Kennedy continues to sell primarily via direct mail when everybody else is selling via email and social media and stuff. And he's saying, look, you're fighting against 200 200 people that emailed Mike COOCH today. Okay, at least in his inbox, you're fighting that. And he said, but I can tell you right now that there's only 3 people that sent Mike COOCH a direct mail piece, and only one person who sent Mike COOCH a direct mail piece that actually really stood out and was intriguing. So now I've got his undivided attention. Okay, he's not looking in his email inbox while he's sitting there, opening up my direct mail piece. And he's right? He is architecting an experience using direct mail to make sure that he has got my individual attention. This is one of the reasons why I stress to you guys to use direct mail as much as possible, as much as your budget allows. Okay. I also had a competitor in my industry in the IT services space who's done very well in the business, continues to do very well in that business. And he's in Bakersfield, California, of all places, which if you've ever been, it's kind of in the, I don't know, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, I think. It's one of those places where I'm like, why would you live here in California? If you could live anywhere in California, why would you put Bakersfield? You're not anywhere near the beach. You're not, to me, it's like, you're kind of in no man's land. But that's where he's from. He loves it. And he's done very well in this business. When he sells to a prospect, he never goes to the prospect's office. Okay? The prospect has to come to his office. And why is that? Well, because he controls the entire experience. When you walk into his office, everything is designed from the minute that you get there to leave an incredible impression. You get escorted, a nice receptionist comes up, talks to you, greets you, offers you coffee, offers you something to snack on, that type of thing, takes you into a really well-designed conference room. In that conference room, they have all of the framed articles that they've been mentioned in and awards that they've won all over the conference room. They have a TV playing. That's client testimonials talking about how great of a company they are and all this type of stuff, right? They have cameras on the prospect the whole time so that they can see how they're reacting, okay? And then before the actual sales pitch starts, they walk them through their facility, which is this beautifully designed like IT data center, like it looks like NORAD, okay? And there's all these engineers sitting at all these, computers that have these fancy dashboards with all these metrics on them and all this type of stuff. And he walks them through and he talks about how, they're proactively monitoring the health of the systems of all of their clients and yada, yada. And you can't help but be blown away, especially when you're being sold to against some of the chucklehead IT service providers that are out there that show up with jeans on with holes in them and didn't come cigarette breath, coffee breath. And that's how they come in to sell. And I'm not joking. I'm not being mean. That is the industry. So removing those variables gives him a tremendous advantage. And so Tim Fanderick on our call right now says this is why we have people come to our office. Local companies, at least, we control the environment. Absolutely. So there you go, right here in our own crowd. And Tim has one of the more successful and larger businesses of I'm sure anybody in this group. So there is real merit to it. And again, you don't have to have a big, beautiful office and stuff like that. That is something I never did in my career. Not to say that we never brought prospects into our office, but I mean, we never really architected that experience that way. We actually have beautiful offices in our company. And so when people did come in, they were impressed, but you don't have to do that. So your job is to control the variables you can. You may not have a big, pretty office right now. There's so many things that you can control. Okay. So examples, some other examples, speaking from the stage. Okay. Masterful speakers from the stage, at these huge events and stuff, they are absolutely brilliant at controlling the whole experience, right? The temperature of the room, the music that gets played when they're running up on stage, the things that are said when they're introduced, okay, the way that they're dressed, the pace, the tone of the way they speak, everything is choreographed. Eating at a top restaurant, okay? You expect excellent service. You expect the environment to be just right? Top restaurants choreograph all of that, okay, all of that. I one of the most fascinating books I've ever read on business was by Charlie Trotter, okay, the chef who unfortunately died I think it was just in this last year, maybe a couple years ago, I can't remember now, but anyway, really fascinating, very successful chef, had a restaurant in Chicago called Charlie Trotter's and was hugely successful. Anyway, when you read his book, the obsessive detail, the obsessive attention to detail that guy paid to the experience of the diner in his restaurant was amazing. As an example, in a restaurant, there's always crumbs and food and stuff like that end up on the floor, right? And in most restaurants, you would expect somebody to come through with a broom or, whatever, or at the very least, somebody bends down to pick up the food that's on the floor. But he didn't ever want anybody to see that in his restaurant because he felt like it was kind of a dirty image that would taint the experience of somebody eating at this very exclusive, very expensive restaurant, right? So he would have the wait staff, they would have like stick them on the bottom of their shoes so that they could walk over to a piece of food that was on the floor and step on it, and it would stick to the bottom of their shoes so that they could then walk back, back into the kitchen area and behind the scenes there and take it off their shoe and throw it away without anybody seeing. So that was the kind of attention to detail that he paid. Visiting Starbucks, okay? Starbucks or Apple stores, right? Starbucks and Apple stores have been unbelievably thought through in how they're designed and how you experience everything from start to finish there. The story of the Apple stores was that they built a mock-up of the Apple store, of the first Apple store in a big warehouse, and spent years perfecting the experience of that store before they actually opened their first store. So they had every detail right, every design detail right. And to them, spending a whole ton of money to have like beautiful, wood handles on a piece of furniture in their store, where most stores invest in the cheapest, junkiest, cabinets and shelves they can, to them, that's all part of the experience. Okay. And that's part of what makes those stores so ridiculously successful. High-end attorneys' offices. Okay. Same way. When you go into a really high-end attorney's office in a place like New York or Boston or something like that, the entire thing is to make you think, holy cow, these people are powerful, right? These people are powerful. The entire experience is to make you think, man, the $750 an hour I'm about to pay is well worth it. So these are all examples that you can see in your life. Go to a really good restaurant, go to Starbucks, pay attention, start paying attention to the little things that they do to really architect an experience, and notice how it's to it next, and notice how certain things are consistent no matter where you go, because they want where you're at.